Hi, hello, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining and tuning in today for our first webinar in APAC. This will be the first of many to come in the new year. Today we will be discussing hiring during COVID. My name is Stephanie Garcia and I'm the commercial manager at Storm2 Singapore. So I'm responsible for driving commercial strategy, which for us at Storm2 means ensuring that we're having proactive, relationship-focused interactions with clients, which is why we're having this webinar. So today we'll be discussing hiring in a global pandemic, as I mentioned. As we all know, all business sectors were affected by the pandemic in one way or another, and FinTech was clearly no exception. After the initial shock and the uncertainty, we saw that the employment situation fluctuated from a hiring freeze during and after the lockdown period in Singapore in the first half of 2020, and it has become a hiring frenzy since Q1 earlier this year. So this situation has presented its own sets of challenges and opportunities, with companies having to quickly adapt to the changes on the market in order to survive. But as more companies in different industries look to transfer their operations online and consumer behavior shifts, we've seen how the fintech market has thrived during this time, which has also fueled a high demand for top talent to support growth and support new projects. So as we come to terms with the changes of the past year and a half, we're also coming to the realization that some of these changes are here to stay, and we will probably need to adapt as the situation continues to go on. So in order to discuss this today, I'm joined by our guest speakers. We have Snehal joining us from Syfe, we have Kristine from BukuKas, and Asheesh joining us from Kristal.AI. So thanks again for joining us. And before we start the conversation, can you each tell us a little bit about yourselves? Maybe we can start with Kristine.
Yeah, happy to be here and thank you for the invitation. So I'm Kristine. I'm heading the product across the board for BukuKas Group, which is with the missions to empower SMB in Indonesia to grow their business and be successful with their business. So we function in two different verticals. One is very much on financial services, and the other is an e-commerce enablement platform. Yeah, happy to be here.
Perfect, thank you. Asheesh, do you want to follow up?
Sure, thanks. Yeah. Hi everyone, this is Asheesh. I'm the founder of Kristal.AI. I'm based in Singapore. Kristal is in the digital wealth management space, wealth management. We have teams across 4 different countries now, Dubai, Hong Kong, India, and Singapore. Quite happy to be here and participate in this discussion.
Perfect, thank you. And last but not least, Snehal.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, I'm Snehal. I head product and growth at Syfe. We are also in digital wealth management, and we help normal everyday people to invest their savings. We have offices in India, Singapore, and Hong Kong, and have experienced the similar sort of hiring challenges of scaling up during the pandemic. So thanks for the invite today. I'm happy to share whatever little new things we've learned over the last couple of years.
Thank you all again. So yeah, why don't we get started? So one of the first things that I wanted to know is how did your companies initially react to COVID? Did you already have remote work policies in place, for example, or any other elements that helped ease this transition for you?
Maybe I could kick off. I think for an engineering product sort of a group, it might have been a little easier because most of us use agile methodologies like Scrum, which have great practices like daily stand-ups, sprint planning, retrospectives. So for us to just switch to work from home and seamlessly continue was really easy. I think what we did was then apply these to non-engineering groups, right? Like encourage other orgs to adopt some of these practices, and that's really helped us, improve collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add to that. So when COVID hit us, or hit the world, right? So the distributed team, even with that, so we were already functioning out of 3 different countries, pretty much since incorporation, I would say, within the first year of incorporation. So we knew about Zoom and other kind of video softwares for people to know about that, and have been on distributed teams pretty much. Also, given that there was a role involved which we used to do, so working from anywhere, working from hot desks here and there was also pretty common. So since for us to move towards a distributed work from home regime was not difficult, but just coming to terms with what has hit the world, and you just can't step out of your house, and there's a whole circuit breaker going on, markets were going crazy, a lot of client queries were coming in. So handling all those things started creating a lot of I would say not stress, but kind of a lot of strain into the ecosystem, and of course things like hiring took a backseat because there was just everything else, that became priority, which we got had to handle. So quite an interesting time, I would say, that we went through. But as it panned out, learnings which we can share, what was good, what was bad. I'm sure all of us must have made some mistakes, some stupid decisions in hindsight, which we'll be quite happy to share about. But yeah, that was just a quick advance on that.
Yeah, I think our company also in the similar situation, right? Even before COVID, we already have 3 offices: one in India, one in Singapore, and another one, which is the biggest office, is in Indonesia. And we already hiring in the remote based kind of like hybrid, right? So it's pretty easy for the tech and product growth design team to step into that fully. I think it would be a lot more challenge for example, business operation team, which is need that kind of interaction. For example, with merchants that is purely offline in Indonesia, for example, that would be a lot more challenges for business operation team. But otherwise, I think everyone adapt very well.
Okay, interesting. And so did you all, how in terms of hiring, right? Did you decide to implement a hiring freeze, or did you decide to expand during 2020? I think for most companies we saw a high contrast, right? It was either one or the other. So how did you decide to move ahead with that, and how has your outlook on this changed since then? And did you modify your strategy?
Yeah, so maybe I think that first. So we didn't have any, I would say, like a hiring freeze beyond what was an approved headcount. But I can say that what we did, I believe, for a period of roughly 6 months was a headcount freeze, because we had an approved headcount which was done, let's say, by Jan or end of December, and we were in the process of hiring those. But what did happen was that the kind of hiring we had to do changed. Also, we had to retool certain roles and certain strategies. So, for example, from marketing, we moved to more sales centric, uh,
Hmm.
and things like that. So those kind of retooling, and some of our people, I mean, hats off to them. They were able to just overnight, take a slightly different role to make sure that they can adjust to the new normal, because we were going through a huge amount of uncertainty. But yes, I would say the headcount did not increase till all the way till September, after which I would say there was a bit more clarity on how markets will open, liquidity will open, funding markets would behave. And that's when I would say when we went a bit more aggressive. But good thing is that we never fired a single individual throughout the whole COVID period. And we didn't have, I would say, anyone leaving also, so the headcount kind of stayed static, with the approved ones actually being filled up as we could absorb more people coming in.
Yeah, I think it's we're sharing pretty much the very similar path, right? There's no downsides in our company per se. So what we do is we basically reassess our business model and then see whether different roles, right, and how we can help each of the team member to kind of have more confidence in terms of their scope and the flexibility that brings about when the COVID situation comes, right? The other part is, yes, we did take some kind of stop gap in between, especially when COVID first happened, because there's too much uncertainty and the direction of the market is simply not clear, right? So it was not a wise decision to be made in terms of increased hiring, for example. For this year, starting from I think around March and April, then we already starting to kind of put in a lot more oil to the engine, right? And then back up on the hiring pipe. And because also the reason for the time is also we see a very high growth in our business, and therefore there's no reason not to bring in new talents in-house and help growing it even further.
Yeah, quite similar for us. I mean, a little different because we raised our Series A and B during the last like the late of 2020, which meant that we had to scale really fast, right? And I think we also do recognize that all of us being in fintech were one of those industries which actually did well during the pandemic. Obviously, we have colleagues in other sectors who unfortunately were laid off or had to like take pay cuts or something.
Yeah.
I think with fintech, our problems were the other way. Like you just had to grow fast, and then obviously the challenges of hiring during this full remote, especially with everybody competing with each other. I feel like we are still in that sort of a bubble, very different from the rest of the world.
Yeah, agree.
I think, yeah, as you mentioned, right, the competition, right? Singapore is driving, growth in the fintech sector. However, the local talent pool is limited, right? And there's a high level of competition for the best talent. So, how have you overcome this in your organization? How are you dealing with this, this competitive spirit at the moment?
Well, I think interestingly, all three of us are probably recruiting in all markets, right? India, Singapore, and Hong Kong.
Yes.
With Kristine, obviously, Indonesia as well. And it's the same, right? And I think if you look at the amount of VC funding which has come into India, it's insane, right? Like trying to find talent at any level, not just like grassroots, but managers or managers of managers. It's become extremely hard. I think we've tried to reduce rounds. Trying to focus on giving candidates a really great experience. And I think what really worked is helping them really understand the culture. Each growing company has their own DNA, and it's best if there's a fit both ways, right? I don't think like any candidate can fit and grow in any organization. I do believe like if the fit is there both ways, that's when the magic really happens. I think one thing which is this unique sort of scenario at sports starts is to get more people to the end, like to the last round, because the drop really happens there, which never wasn't the case before, right? You would take maybe 2 or 3 candidates till the last round, but now you just go in assuming that you'll need at least 5, 6 till the end, right? Engineering is, as we can all tell, it's even worse. Like unless the person is really joined in the office, you can't really tell. Yeah. So yeah, that's been our experience.
Yeah, you have to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Yep. Yep.
What
Yeah, so
about
for
you,
us also,
Ashish? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. So for us also, the only I would say slightly different than what we've done. It's a more of a executive decision is also deciding to rely more on outsourcers because we clearly figure out that the whole hiring cycle, either as Snehal is saying, you cut down the number of rounds or Like literally, if someone comes into the office, you lock the doors, don't let them go back. So just stopping short of that and making them work. But I remember this reminds me of the time when in our first or second year of operations, I remember meeting someone for a coffee at Asia Square here, and I asked that person that, okay, I think this is all good. Let's go upstairs and start the work. So it was literally doing from that. But then in today's world, of course, you need to follow process, and everything's on Zoom, so or whatever on video conferencing. So there's that more outsourcing and agreeing to give flexible location, especially in non-sales kind of roles when you can in engineering or product and so on. And if you see what's happening even in Silicon Valley today, like employees who are really motivated, contributing, working on their own times, but taking projects and delivering them, there's no reason why they can't be anywhere in the world. So giving them the flexibility of location or even multiple locations throughout the year, I think that's something that really attracts them to a company and makes them more sticky.
Yeah, I agree. I think for myself, I think that there's definitely a fundamental shift, right? When we mention about job market now, and supply and demand are greatly different. What we have noticed, at least with our own hiring experience, is that the motivation as of today from candidates has changed, right? So there's a couple of points. One is either the person actually looking for opportunity that expanding their scope and responsibility. Two, whether the person wants to optimize the market trend and having a better gain financially, right? In terms of their his or her package, or even title, right? The third one is also the ones that looking for what is a very much more meaningful mission to themselves, right? Which is relatable, whether that mission of the companies and whether it contributes to the social impact that they're looking forward to be part of, right? And I think that there's other elements who are the one who's seeking for environments which is much flatter and allows them to be more creative and contributing to the common good of the outcome of the company, right? So a lot of candidates or profiles that come to us and have a chat with us, the demand in condition for moving job or accepting a job depending on one or multiple of those that I mentioned previously. There's nothing wrong or right. It's not a matter of right or wrong per se. It's more in terms of we assessing the right motivation of the profile coming to us as a company, and then we as a company make a conscious decision, right? Whether it fits with the company needs and demand, and also, for example, culture fit for the stage that we are in. So we being very very detailed in terms of analyzing all of those information. I think it would not be a surprise to many of us here that lots of candidates doesn't have a clear point of view in terms of what they want, right? But then on our end, we take it as also our job to help them and to guide them to make a lot more the matter in terms of clarity, in terms of their own wants and needs, so that they help themselves and then they help us also, right, along the way. So those are the new kind of findings or insights that we have concluded lately, especially over the past like 3 to 6 months.
Great
Yeah.
point.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead if you Snehal, if
I
you
don't
want
know,
to
I was
add
saying
anything on
like
that.
great insight, yeah. Those good points, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the pandemic has obviously given us all a lot of time to think. So, as you mentioned, Christine, I think a lot of people are reassessing what are their priorities. What do they really want to do? I think this has pushed some people to take career risks, and obviously be more perceptive to new opportunities, right? So we talked about it on the candidate side, coming to you, right? but how how can companies and how have you guys been able to retain talent during this time?
Oh, good questions. I think it's a $1,000,000 question, right? I think I think hiring is already one difficult topic to solve. Retaining talent is actually a lot harder than any of us can imagine, right? I think just the simple fact that everyone has a lot more choices now. So the situation where companies taking things for granted is no longer valid, right? So on our hand, we actively looking into ways that we can enhance the our experience in terms of work, and also investment in terms of coaching and mentoring opportunity for our own people. The point of view that we have in our company is we are willing to invest in our own people and growing them, because we would want them to be successful even beyond the time or the tenants that the employees stay with us, right? So with that in mind, it's a very long kind of long-term investment that we're willing to invest in the each of the team member in our organization, and that come across multiple level. And I can tell you that effort, even though it's very easy to say now or to speak now, but it requires humongous amount of commitment in different level. Yeah. It also means that as alignment across the board is we agree that it's part of our DNA to kind of always assume that role, right, at different level, to be always there for another person and help that person to grow. So yeah, so that's one of the key initiatives that we have taken in ourselves, and trying to do better and invest in a better way.
That's pretty cool. If I don't know if others mind, could you tell us a little bit more about what this really entails?
Okay, so I think a few initiative, what we, this is somewhat, I think, as I explained in the role of tech and product, right? You build product and tech for the end user. So in this perspective, we consider actually the investment that we put in our people is somewhat in the same framework of how you build great product, right? So we put each team member in at the center of the initiative or the effort that we want to do. So there's different level in terms of training, or in terms of upskilling, in terms of coaching and mentorship, right? So each of the manager basically having committing different one-on-one with different level. And then also we as a leader in a group, right, often to have that feedback loop to check in with one another. And also the other thing, which I think lots of people forget, right, that during the COVID time, we have seen a tremendous amount of stress that given from the situation of lockdown. People tends to work longer hours during the time when you work from home, right? So we actually need to design intentionally different activities that get them away from the screen or from the work itself for long hours, right? And then training in a way, or modeling in a way that they have more bonding activities with each other. They have more opportunity to mentorship in different function, so that it diverse their activities, not only to focus on their core functional work, but diverse, looking into different dimension of the business too. Yeah, so that's some of the activities that we do.
I think that's a good point, and I think it's quite a very nice way to go about that. So we've done a couple of initiatives which I can tell you about. So effectively, as the stress levels were increasing and physical interaction or face-to-face interactions were decreasing, so there was a need to come up with either mental health and wellness kind of programs. So doing those, and at every opportunity, if you could meet up in smaller groups then bring about that physical interaction in many stages. So basically doing some of those things and then hosting, let's call it online events or games or whatever you may call, trying to simulate an office atmosphere or the fun part of the office atmosphere that typically you have is some of the things that were done. And I would say the focus on the HR role was increased, so we basically beefed up the whole hiring or human resources function itself to make sure that there is now dedicated effort, in making sure each employee. See, employees are the biggest asset in all our companies. So,
Yeah.
so you have to take care of them for your company to grow, your product to grow, and so on. So I think that's the best way to go about that. All these things, just because the COVID is the way it is, I mean, we have seen people coming in saying that things open up, I want to take a break, and so you got to make arrangements so that you can give a month-long break and things like that. You may have your contracts talking about this leave policy and that leave policy, but if someone comes and says, we need to travel because I want to meet my family back home, you say, okay, I just go and travel and do what you have to do, right? So,
Yeah.
so, so, so basically, sometimes all these contractual clauses are just out of the door, and you got to show a lot of flexibility in how to go about certain things, and just making sure that the right talent is well taken off, and empathy is very very important to us.
I agree. I
I
think,
think,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
oh, no, please. I think that word is so important, right, Ashish? Empathy, and it can only come top down. The more that we push, the core team and the managers to think from this perspective, I think it's just us being really good people, right? Apart from any commercial aspect of retention or something. I think one thing that we focused on was like hiring internally. The idea that if there are positions which need more responsibility and need more skills, then focus on that one-on-one and coaching to upskill your existing talent, and that automatically, if you've hired right, that's like a really like real opportunity that the right folks see of, like, something that you would take maybe a few years to develop, these skills and these responsibilities which happened over a matter of months, right? So yeah, I think that really worked. And the idea of playing together, as a team and across functions, um, we saw like it was super critical to, like, obviously it's very isolating, and we've all been dealing with this pandemic stress. Um, so as managers and core teams, we made it a point, like, get everyone to schedule it into their calendar. Recurring events for, like, fun time, have scheduled lunch hours, have a scheduled end time to the day. We started seeing that quite early, that people would just sort of work on and then go off to sleep, get up, rinse, repeat. I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the key thing, as Ashish said, empathy. You look at it from that length, and then you start making all the right choices. Sorry, Stephanie, you were saying something.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think another thing, if I may ask, is there's also initiative or ideas that we testing out or experiment that come up by the team. So for example, like no meeting day. It's actually quite interesting, right? Because you see the level of whether people actually, we encourage people to carve out the time for their thinking time or even to rest, right? And that works wonder. Yeah, so it's also a very great like experiment that come from our team and implementing by our team, and it bring to us lots of insight also, right, of like personal time, undisrupted time, personally.
That's pretty cool. We've been reading about this, and I mean, this is the first time I met somebody who's actually implemented it.
Yeah, yeah,
Any
we did.
any uh, any like insights to share there?
Alvin, happiest employee of my company if I don't have any meetings on a Sunday.
I think these things don't apply to CEOs. Sorry.
Yes, you have a higher price tag, so
Compliment also.
you have a higher price tag, so you can't complain.
You can't
The whole
complain.
company will have no meetings, but you will have meetings. Sorry, but yeah, Kristine, Snehal was asking. So how's that been? How's the experience on that been? The initial feedback on that. It's quite curious.
We kind of experiment that with the team in multiple level for 2 weeks, and then regroup and then kind of reassess whether it works. So fighting for us is that a 1 day meeting is very hard. No meeting is very hard for everyone in every level, right? Especially when given our situation where the product like the whole organization spread in different time zone, right?
Yeah.
So we come to learn that implementing focus time or no meeting time in a smaller bricks, for example, like 2-3 hours or half day of one of the calendar day, right? It's much more doable, right? And then the other thing is after implementing and another sign of feedback is people are generally very happy about having that time for themselves. But then a lot also feedback that they struggle, right? Because even though you know that kind of situation, right? Our meeting, our calendar is full, but there would always be someone to put more, right? Even like there's a overlay in between. So it does happen, right? There's still effort to kind of even blocking the calendar. There's still invites coming in and set it as urgent. So what we do is that actually we recognize that we also need to run internal workshop, right? In especially focusing on time management, so that we're sharing experience in terms of people or schedule that is from the founders, from the C level, who are most of the time would be the most busiest people in terms of calendar, right, and conflicting of time, and help the other team member to learn and what should be applicable for them. And the thing we also want to address in terms of time management is the discipline for yourself, right? And again, as a principle, I said to everyone, nothing equally urgent, right? So there's also a practice of what is really urgent, which is require an immediate response and which can wait, right? And that also the encouragement or the guideline in terms of leadership, we are very open-minded in terms of someone being clearer in terms of their own boundary, right? And what things that they are prioritize and what things should be a bit later, right? And that should be fine. There should not be any punishment or judgment around that. But we also encourage the team, it's okay to do that, but make sure that your communication is clear, right? So, for example, very simple thing, you can come back to the person in another time, but please drop a note. Let me give some time to think about this. I come back to you in a couple of days, right? And then, therefore, the communication, when it's clear and transparent, everything is a lot more acceptable across the board, right? So there's a journey also. We go with the team in that experiment too.
Next. So actually, I do remember one example. I don't know how badly Indonesia was hit by COVID, but India went through a lot of hell, I would say, in April, May. So I don't know, one of the things that we did was we even made sure that our employees had access to oxygen cylinders and oxygen tanks and some medical facilities, beefing up the insurance plans. So a lot of those things was done, which so you got to go really outside of that was like a true emergency situation. And that's when you literally start behaving like a family, a very close knit circle that builds a camaraderie within all the employees. Then you know that we truly care about them, and that's something I feel, and I'm hoping a lot of firms could have done, because we did see that kind of practice spreading a lot. as people started building these small communities where they could share resources between each other.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we've all had during the pandemic, right? It's important to have that company culture, right? And the pandemic has shown has really showcased, right, each company's culture, and has allowed each team, right, to show a little bit clearer, right, because it's more of a challenge to have that culture and keep and communicate that culture when you're not in the office. So it's with COVID, that has clearly limited how we can connect and how we can network, right? How has this affected your hiring process? Because I think one of the main things that you mentioned, right, is obviously having the right people on the team, right, who have the right mindset, and especially so now that everyone has to work from home, you need someone that has that is able to communicate, that is able to work autonomously. What has been your solution to make sure that the chemistry is there? Asheesh, I know you mentioned earlier, going out for a coffee with a candidate at Asia Square, right? So we can no longer do that as easily as we could before, right? And a lot of people are a bit hesitant to go out, or maybe we're not able to because we're in a different location, right? So how do you make sure that the chemistry is there on that side, and that they would be a good cultural fit?
Yeah, so it's quite difficult to replicate that face-to-face, in-person interaction. But whenever things do open up, like like in Singapore, you have 2 people, 5 people, and things like that. I do try to, like, I can tell you, even now, I do try to catch up one-on-one with people. Sometimes I actually call one of my team leads for a walk in the botanic garden in the morning, just to just be in a comfortable area, walk around, talk about stuff, because we're also, frankly, I'm personally quite sick of these video conferences and Zooms of the world, I can tell you.
Sorry, sorry.
So no, I mean, so given a
No
choice, I
problem.
would rather meet one in person. Of
I know,
course,
I
when
know, I
there's
know.
no, we go with what it is, right? So rather than having a Zoom call or whatever Teams call, I say that, do you want to have coffee early in the morning, 8 o'clock, something like that, and you come in your pajamas, it's fine. We just go and just have a walk. So it's basically doing those kind of things. Of course, it's very limited, but the hope is that if I can do it with the team leads and they can do it with their team members, then the whole culture kind of spreads. Of course, now India, people are doing reunions and parties are back, so that's a different thing. I don't know how in Indonesia or various cities over there. I would love to hear that. This type of stuff.
Yeah, I think definitely it's a great move for a walk, and then having one-on-one, right? I think we used to do that, like walking around, having a walk and talk kind of sessions, right? When pre-COVID per se. Now it's a bit more of a luxury, but still manageable. So I think it's a great thing to do. Um, I think in terms, especially for the hiring process, right? You'd be surprised that how many percent actually of hiring managers do interview without turning on their video or camera, right? It can be either that they are very tiring of, get tired of hang out and Zoom, right? And then showing up with different, meetings. But I think there's little touch, right, in terms of connecting in a personal level to the candidates matter, right? Because I think it's also a respect of time and effort that a candidate show to us in terms of application process, right? The other thing is I always positions like interview, not really as interview. I position it as a casual chat, right? It also means that it relieves the pressure that the candidates need to put up like a best performance ever. Because in at the end of the day, the realization is, when they relax and be more themselves, that is the version that we would wish to see, right? If there is like, for example, a panel of like 3 interviews and 1 candidate, there's no way that you can connect with the candidates in a more, personal level, right? So those are some of the little touch like that. We very consciously built into our hiring process to avoid, situation that create stress for the candidate, right? And then just allow them to be themselves, relax, having a chat. Whether it works or doesn't work, it's okay, right? It's just another chat, and then you explore, you meet new people, you discuss about different topic, and the goal is to have an interesting conversation, and pretty much each. That's how our team approaching it. Yeah.
We're trying to do something tight, because I think you try and balance getting to know somebody as well as like reduce the number of rounds, right? So, you know, generally our process is there's like a screener round, screener call where you're trying to like figure out the basic fit, the culture, personality, basic skills. Try and also like share a lot of information about the role and the company. And then there would be either assignment or a deeper one-on-one round, depending on the seniority. That's where you're like really getting to know the person and their background. Um, and if it's an assignment, then we do like a group discussion. Um, get the candidate to meet the team they're going to be working with, see how the chemistry is, see how they like really, you know, how good they are with like feedback, criticism, and so on. And then generally maybe a round and close, right? Um, and over these, this I think 10-20% of the evaluation is really about the candidate's personality, try and gauge like interpersonal skills and so on. Earlier, I would say we would do this separately as a round by itself, but now it's sort of baked through the entire process. And when we're working with the recruitment agencies, I think this criteria is clearly sort of vocalized. Like, hey, we need an X type of personality for a role, so that even the incoming talent, the incoming candidates are kind of screened at that level too. Yeah.
Okay, and what about I think a big part of hiring is obviously onboarding and making sure that it's a successful first few I would say days or even weeks, right? To how do you onboard new members, right? Virtually. I mean, for example, in Singapore, it's been quite difficult to gather multiple people in the past year due to COVID restrictions. So how do you make newcomers feel like they're part of the team and break the ice, right? Because sometimes what can happen is that you feel like some people might feel like, okay, I've joined a company and I'm part of the newcomers, and those are the people that were here previously, and so it's kind of section, it's two sections, right? So how do you make sure that it's a good merge, right, of the newcomers that are arriving, especially since everyone is hiring in a higher number now, right? So you do need to make sure that it's a good integration. I mean, Snehal, I know that you're in India now, you're able to have team events, but that wasn't the case for a long time. So how have you guys approached this?
So actually, there are two different things here. So one is we need to make sure that every new person who's being inducted in, the others know about them, and that person is introduced well to the others, because it will work across geographies and time zones. So we have these weekly catch-ups where it's kept pretty casual, very informal, and people come and talk about the company culture, the values, and just 2-3 minutes about themselves, introducing themselves to everyone else. So that kind of serves as like an icebreaker, so people get to know what's going on. And then at many times, in a structured manner, there is a one-on-one that I myself do or my co-founder does with all new people joining, which we try to do once in a month, either with the co-founders and, let's say, all the new inductees in that month, or sometimes depending on a senior level, it could be like a one-on-one catch-up also. So just trying to make sure that the company culture, I think that culture is the most important, that you need to percolate it to the new joinees, and along with of course making sure that the team interactions get a lot more smoother. But having said that, I do, like I can tell you in Singapore, whenever there's an opportunity to meet in person, I kind of pounce on it. So, so I have 3 kids at home and I love to get out of my house. So, so if there is a one-on-one coffee, a one-on-one lunch, whenever any new join, I'd love to just pounce on that opportunity, and they all know it. So they keep saying, okay, when we get a message on Slack, you want to meet up for a beer or a coffee? So yeah, cool, let's go for it.
Kristine, what about you guys over at BukuKas? How have you been? Obviously you work in different countries as well. So how do you make sure that it's a good integration?
To be honest, right, it's a very tough questions or tough challenge to solve, especially when the face-to-face is not there. What one of the effort that we doing, and it show positive feedback, is to have actually pairing buddy, right?
Okay.
And all of the time that is including the first and the second week, all of that is dedicating to one-on-ones for different function. What we think that is very important for the team member to feel integrated, is first they have someone as they see as reliable that can help them in terms of figuring out that initial setup. That's the reason why we have the pairing buddy. The second part, in terms of one-on-one with multiple function, this is critical because the person can only feel integrated when they have given the full context, right? And that context can only be given in multi-dimensional, given by many different parties, right? And functional. So for example, marketing. So for example, engineer, designer, product, data analytics, operations, CS, right? There's so many different sides of the companies. And definitely giving the person up to speed and give prioritization, right? So we expect you not to do the work. Basically, we're willing to for you to invest the first 2 weeks, right, to get to know everyone surround you, and we help you to connect to one-on-one with different function, right, that you're gonna be working with longer time. So that is few things that we implement, but definitely, I mean, to be honest, definitely we can. There's so many area that we definitely should do better.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're all adapting to that and kind of taking it day by day on this and seeing what works best, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
What about from the candidate's point of view? If you had to give, one piece of advice for a candidate to navigate this new landscape now, what would that be?
Sorry, can you repeat the questions?
Yeah. So what would be your top piece of advice for a candidate to to navigate this new landscape of having to look for a new opportunity virtually and go through the whole hiring process virtually and also the onboarding process as well?
Yeah, I think that lots of candidates or lots of person, I realize that they have acknowledged that there's a great opportunity in terms of what's out there for them to jump job. My advice is, right, lots of people go window shopping in terms of shop without actually take a step back and in a drawing board, analyzing oneself and what is more important, not only short term but mid term and long term, right? Where do you see yourself, and then the next move, whatever that it may be, how it's going to contribute to you and your career in the longer term. So I have seen multiple people going in the window shopping process for job without doing that exercise. And the effect of that part missing is that there's also a lot of endless window shopping, and there's no clear criteria of how and when and why one can make a decision over one offer compared to others, right? So that would be my advice in terms of raising that self-awareness of what you want as a person, and where your strengths are, and what kind of job or opportunity would help contributing to your career, even far ahead that short-term move.
Perfect. I think, I realize we have about 10 minutes left, so I did want to ask you all, what are your predictions for the next year? And what can we expect from your company in the year to come, right? Are there any new products or any new markets that you will be focusing, for example? Maybe we can start off with Asheesh.
I'll just make a quick comment first. Maybe first thing I think we need to do is to find if there are employees who are working for two firms at the same time. Maybe Snehal, you and I should get together and see if we have some common employees. I'm just kidding. So because I think for all the next year's Tom will come to us and say, hey, we found a guy who's the exact fit for both of you. Just make him work half day each. Yeah, that could work actually.
Very possible. Very possible.
Quite possible. Right? I mean, given how the market
Very
is,
possible.
it's like no. I mean, it's like I can drive for Grab and Gojek at the same time, right? So why can't I work for distance? So I think we're getting there, given how the candidates are and how what the demand supply is. I think we'll probably get there. That's what we're going to embrace in the new year, I think. So let's see how that pans out. But yeah. So but in terms of the growth, of course. So I think adding geographies, how we are all growing. So we are growing in, like I said, so India, Hong Kong, Singapore was there, and then we added Middle East this year, and now looking to expand to other countries in either South Asia or other hemispheres. So definitely the geographical growth is coming. Funding market has improved a lot. As you see, the stock markets, they have really done well, and how venture cap has been become aggressive in putting in money. So definitely you'll see the next stage of growth coming in. Now, of course, unless if there is an unforeseen kind of event which kind of change that, which nobody can predict as such. But I think with that you can see a lot of growth coming in across geographies. And given that you're anyway in a distributed team, I see more and more companies adopting a very flexible work from home, which means you decide the number of days you're working from home and office. Take your call, right? It's an employee's call. And also similarly, when you expand to other geographies, you may even land up hiring your product managers in one country, your engineers in another country, and maybe just do this some kind of offsites where people get to meet. If things open up. I know of companies who don't have any offices at all, and they spend that money, the money that they save, they do it on just two annual offsites, which is also a great concept, a great idea. Especially if you're not a company which is very, very big. If you're, let's say, 10, 20 people, then you could afford to do that. So these kind of changes could come in, which could be quite exciting to look at. And I'm also looking forward to see how other companies evolve and what the big tech does, because that kind of paves the way for you to think how exactly to go about managing the talent and your growth.
Okay,
Yep,
perfect. Snehal, what about you? What can we expect from Syfe and your predictions for next year?
Well, I'm hoping, obviously travel sanctions, these are, but I feel like more businesses would embrace hybrid or fully remote work. And I wouldn't be surprised if, what Asheesh is saying, that's stand out, some sort of, dash as a service, employment as a service or something. Yeah, I think for us, we're looking to launch Hong Kong soon. That's been in the news for a while. So our focus is there right now.
Okay, perfect. And Kristine, what about BukuKas?
Let me dial up my fortune teller and ask. I think that we're gonna see a lot in terms of how a lot more people gonna turn into full-time consultants or freelancer. And us as company, right? We kind of need to rethink whether there's a right approach to incorporating this source of talents into the full-time mode workshop workload as usual. right? So that's one thing that I think potentially we need to consider even very early of next year already.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think it's yeah, as everything changes, I did ask for predictions just in case. I'm not going to give mine anymore because as I mentioned to you guys earlier, I think every single time I made predictions about being able to travel or anything, I was too optimistic. So I'm hoping that the future proves me wrong and that we will be able to travel again. Just actually on that one, since we do have a few more minutes left, what are you doing in terms of roles where previously, especially in Southeast Asia and in Singapore, right? It is a regional hub. And there were a lot of roles where people were traveling to different countries on a regular basis, right? And now, obviously, traveling is an odyssey in itself. So how are you adapting to this? Are you hiring local teams, or will you be implementing travel again in the future?
Mm.
Yes, I think it's more hub and spoke now. So like earlier, if you had teams centralized in one place and fly down to do business in other countries, that model pretty much doesn't work that well. So you need to have some distributed team. So let's say if you were to set up, let's say Southeast across, let's say Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, for example, right? So I would imagine that even a business plan of that would need local teams over there, local rep offices now. Which I would say 2 years ago, I would have said that just have a 5 people team here in Singapore and here. Especially if you're going more to partnerships, institutions, and so on. Now, I think because you know that it's not that easy to travel, and in any case, having some element of decentralized versus centralized makes sense. So, hub and spoke model, I think, works quite well, which is what we started moving towards.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's that is where we will probably see the market going in the future. I think anything else that any of you would like to add before we jump off?
Let's schedule a coffee soon, or actually a beer. I prefer beer.
Yeah, we deserve one. We deserve one after this year.
Yes, I think multiple, not only one, but like multiple.
That's true. That's true. I agree with you. Yes, yes. Hopefully we can do that soon, or we can walk around the botanic gardens, Asheesh and Snehal.
And
Hopefully we will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Snehal, let us know when you're in Singapore, and we will all definitely meet up. But yeah, no. Thank you all for your time today. It was a pleasure to speak with you all, and I hope you have a good Diwali celebration in the next the next few days.
Diwali.
Thank you, everyone. Happy Diwali, everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
for having us. We really enjoyed the conversation.
No problem. Thank you for being pioneers of our APAC webinar. We'll do more, and we'll invite you on those as well. Thank you.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thanks
nice
a lot.
day.
Bye.
Thanks
Thank you.
all.
Bye.